It's this part in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, that I feel like a lot can be learned, especially from Frodo. Sometimes I don't think we give Frodo the credit that we probably should. At this point in time, Frodo has been through so much. As a 12-year-old boy, Frodo lost his mother and father, Drogo and Primula, I think I said that right, in a boating accident on a river. So at age 12, he had to learn to navigate grief and loss on a level that many couldn't even comprehend. And not only does he have to learn to navigate this grief, he has to learn to deal with having to be moved around. Initially, he goes and lives with the Brandybooks, and then from there moves in with his cousin, also known as his uncle, Bilbo. What it must have been like for a 12-year-old child to have to go through and navigate those things. I know that he's a character, but if you're looking at it through the lens of what this character had to have gone through and what it must have done to develop him later on in his life, it really does change, at least potentially, the perspective that we have when we look at Frodo and his actions during the course of the Fellowship of the Ring through Return of the King. And at this point in the Fellowship of the Ring, where Frodo volunteers to go and take the ring, he's gone through so many things that, at least from my perspective, would have shaped him into the type of person who could be strong enough and compassionate enough to be willing to take on such a difficult task that really no one else would be prepared enough to do. And at this point in time in Frodo's life, when Frodo has chosen voluntarily to take the ring to Mount Doom, not only has he gone through that difficult period as a child with losing his parents and then navigating displacement and not having a home or knowing who you're going to live with, when this whole journey started, he goes through a series of different challenges, including getting stabbed on Weathertop with a wound that he's going to carry for the rest of his life. A traumatic event that he's just now getting over. And yet, with all of that in his backstory and having gone through all that difficulty, he is brave enough and strong enough to be willing to take that ring to Mordor. That's incredible, at least to me. The other thing that I think is that at this point, it would appear he's willing to go by himself. Initially, when he says that I'll go, I just don't know the way, he doesn't know that other people are going to volunteer to go with him. He just says, I'll do it. I'll take it. To me, this shows someone that is incredibly strong, selfless, brave, courageous, and of sound moral character. Sometimes I don't think that Frodo is perceived the way that he should. He really is strong. And I also believe that it's everything that he's gone through that has provided this resiliency and this toughness for him to be able to go through and accomplish what he's about to do. In describing hobbits in general, Tolkien stated that it's plain that hobbits are not easily corrupted by power, and that they have a capacity for loyalty and endurance that goes beyond reason. So number one, that's just who hobbits are. And then combine that with everything that he's gone through that has shaped him into the character that he is. He truly is a pillar of strength. I know that sometimes people look at Frodo as a potential failure because he didn't ultimately throw the ring into the fire in Mount Doom. However, Tolkien did speak to stating that Frodo failed, but his failure was redressed. Tolkien went on to say that Frodo deserved all the honor because he had accepted the burden voluntarily and had done all that was in his power. So for me, from that quote, it's not so much that Frodo failed, it's that he literally did everything he could, and by the time he gets to that point in Mount Doom, all of his resources, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, are just gone. And so he literally gave everything that he could. And so for me, that just shows someone that is incredibly strong. I think there's some things that can be learned from Frodo. I really do. Number one, I think anyone who lives life long enough is going to have a tragedy occur to them. And it's going to be up to them to choose how are they going to let this define them. What are they going to learn from this? Are they going to allow it to defeat them, or are they going to allow it to cause more of a greater development within who they are? I think that you could look at the character of Frodo and one that was written to show that he allowed that to change him into someone who is compassionate, kind, selfless, courageous, and who has an understanding and who is empathetic because he has gone through real tragedy. And number two is that if you've gone through tragedy, or if you go through difficult things, you can also allow that process to refine you and provide greater strength, and you develop a resiliency and a toughness that you would never have had before. I see that in the character of Frodo, that everything that he went through provided a resiliency and a toughness that allowed him to accomplish going all the way to Mount Doom to the very end and giving everything that he could. There's lessons to be learned there for you and I from the story of Frodo. So that's one of the reasons why I love that part in the Fellowship of the Ring, and also why I think Frodo deserves a little bit more credit than sometimes we give him. If you look at his story as a whole, he went through so much and allowed that to cultivate a greater resiliency, toughness, and characteristics that provided him the strength to be able to make it through all the way to Mount Doom. And that's something that I think metaphorically you could look at and apply in your own life, and I know that I can apply it in my life too.